Hello. Hello, everyone. Good to see so many faces in here on this freezing cold night. Thank you all so much for being here. A little round of applause, because yes. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Andrew Ut. I am the Executive Director of ICA San Diego. This here is Luciano Pimienta. Before we start, I have to say a couple of things. So give me a little bit of time to get through all of the things that we have to present to you. The Institute of Contemporary Art is a new space in San Diego. We are the evolution of the Lux Art Institute and the San Diego Art Institute. We present, yes, I'll take a clap. We present contemporary art, experimental art, and learning with a mission to question everything. And before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that ICA San Diego sits on the ancestral homeland of the Kumeyaay Nation. The museum extends its respect and gratitude to the Kumeyaay peoples who have cared for this land since time immemorial. And I'd like to thank our board of directors, many of whom are here tonight. Thank you all. And to our amazing ICA team for bringing all of this here tonight and making this possible. Thank you. And a very special thanks to our curatorial team, Husha Sanders, who curated the exhibition of Luciano's work. She's not here with us tonight, so I'm here in her place, as well as to Roxana, yes, Roxana is here. As well as to Roxana Lopez for putting everything up on the walls and making that possible. Our organization is made possible with support from the cities of Encinitas and San Diego, the County of San Diego, the California Arts Council, the National Endowment for the Arts, as well as the support of the Linda Brandes Foundation, the Buchenbach Foundation, and the Som Family Foundation. Thank you to our partners as well at First Republic Bank for the support of institutional programming to bring all of this possible tonight. I also want to thank our founding ICA members. If you're a member, please raise your hand. Yes, that's what I love to see. Thank you, members, for joining us and for making this possible. Your support provides exhibitions and education to the public to reach tens of thousands across our county. If you are interested in becoming a member, Stephanie Dow is over here. There she is. Hi, Stephanie. Stephanie will help you get all set up. And as well as a thank you to our members, I would like to say thank you to the B-side balcony in Del Mar for having the great food that we have tonight over in our members area. If you would like to become a member and are a little hungry, there's some food over there. And there's some great drinks as well, brought to us by Tito's Vodka, Topo Chico, Lost Abbey, Bambucha, Kombucha, and Swell Soda as well. And tonight, we celebrate Luciano's inspired works that give voice to the passage of time and the borders between the tangible and ephemeral. As he states, nature becomes a collaborator. You said that, right? Okay, good. Thank God. That was in quotation marks on my notes here. We see that his work, as it grows, dissipates, and evolves. It highlights that liminal space between what was and what will be. He also explores his own identity through the understanding of Americanness. How is that concept inherited over generations? And what is the iconography and cultural markers that impose that identity onto us? Luciano recently graduated with an MFA from San Diego State University. Just this last summer. Congratulations. And I also have to say, this is his first solo exhibition. But he has already been quite busy. He's had a very busy schedule these last couple of years. He's shown at galleries and project spaces across San Diego and Los Angeles and beyond, including the Vincent Price Art Museum, the Front Gallery, Project Art LA, the Kellogg University Gallery at Cal Poly Pomona, as well as recognized in an online exhibit, which was fantastic, of up-and-coming, recently graduated MFA students. And we are very pleased to present his first solo exhibition at ICA San Diego. Thank you, Luciano. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate your time. Okay, thank you. So the show is called Ways of Knowing. Like I mentioned, my name is Luciano Pimienta. I wanted to start off, I know that ICA North already did land acknowledgement. I created my own, and just to reiterate the importance of it. And so, here you go. I would like to acknowledge we are gathering on the unceded ancestral land of the Kumeyaay. I hold great respect for the land and the original people of the area this campus was built on. Today we also acknowledge the Kumeyaay people for their continued contributions to our region and thank them for their stewardship. This acknowledgement serves as a reminder to continue to learn about the Kumeyaay's histories and present-day lives as we become better stewards of indigenous lands we inhabit. So this picture was taken up here on the hill on the campus, and the show basically explores a lot of ideas of land ownership, property, and boundaries. And included in that is how these things are used for inclusion and exclusion. Inclusion and exclusion as a tool to navigate life. So a couple of things that inspired this work is signage that I saw. So I'm originally from Los Angeles. I came here for school in San Diego. I've been here 3.5 years, and I started to notice all these different signages and around the landscape. So the first one to your left is up here on the hill. It's a private property sign, no trespassing, so kind of telling people not to go past those boundaries. The middle one is at Balboa Park at their cactus garden. And then the post on the last image is by my studio. So I think it was like cut off, and I'm not sure like who did it, but I also took that as like a sign too, right? So it's a sign of whether the city did it or somebody else did it. So there's no street sweeping on that, so you could park there like the whole week. And so that got me thinking about different imagery, iconography, symbols, and what they mean. So this first piece that I'm talking about is called Salida Exit, a hand-painted sign. And I saw this sign. It's actually in reference to an actual sign in Barrio Logan, where my studio is located. This sign drew my attention. It looked like it was handmade as opposed to like a commercial sign. The lettering, the thickness of the lettering caught my mind, and I took inspiration from it. To me, this sign was about safety and keeping order. So it's telling people like not to come in because it's actually an exit to a parking lot structure, so like an exit to keep that order and keep people safe. This piece titled Retired Sign, I took inspiration from where I live. I live in North Park, and there's a lot of like these old retired signs of this neighborhood watch. They're all rusty, and they're kind of like two-tone yellow and like a dark color. And to me, this was also about safety and also about order, but it had like a different feel to it. So the sign reads, "Criminal beware, you are being watched. Community alert, neighborhood in cooperation with the San Diego police." And what you're seeing now is these two are painted on the wall. So the image on the far end, you can see the clay still drying. And I'm gonna take a quick little tangent as to explain why I titled the show Ways of Knowing. So basically, Ways of Knowing is part of the theory of knowledge, and it's used to teach students and get them into like higher education. These are some of the ways that the definition is the method through which knowledge becomes apparent to us. So that's the way of knowing. But I also took it not just in terms of school or academia, but also in just like life in general, how we learn things. So via our parents, via our community, or just our surroundings and all that stuff. These are some of the things that they teach them. So ways of knowing via language, sense perception, emotion, reason, imagination, intuition, memory, and faith. So I got all of these different ideas and I started to look at the landscape and try to use these as ideas for the work. So another thing is I'm on Instagram and I use it as a research tool as well as just like entertainment and community building. This is one, I believe it's probably a TikTok, and it's of this man. He's walking down this row and there's a sign, right? So there's like a bike sign and a pedestrian sign. And he took it more literally and he's walking on one side and the bike's walking on another side. So to me this explains like the ways of knowing, right? So this is how he imagined what he should do via this sign, right? So instead of being on one side walking with his bike, he's like on the opposite side. And so I bring these two pieces back and imagine how are these two viewed? So how are people using these and how are the ways of knowing embedded in them? So for me, these both signs are about order, but they're also about inviting or protecting people, and depending on which side of the sign that you sign, that gives you like it grants you authority, but it also like protects you, or it excludes you if you're like on the other side. I did a lot of research, not just looking at the landscape, but also reading. I read 3 books. In the process of reading this book, this is Sandy Grande, and her book is Red Pedagogy, Native American Social and Political Thought. And in this book, she's basically talking about pedagogy, and so basically how we teach to people. And she connects a lot of like the land and the disposition of land to the needs of her community as an indigenous person and how they're connected. So one of her quotes that I think really speaks to like the work is delineation of the difference between modern, secular, and traditional sacred societies and their competing views of land and nature helps to explain the persistence of severe conflict between societies. So basically how we view land is basically affecting how we like have conflict. So we create borders, we separate people, we exclude people from it, we allow people to come in depending on who they are. So I took a lot of inspiration from her readings, and I came up with different ideas of thinking about the land, and in this piece, turning dust into gold, these signs are for sale. I went up in the hill. There's a lot of clay in San Diego, but there's even more sand. So I wanted to use some of the clay to like build some of the pieces, but I mostly got a lot of sand. So I took a couple of, I took a bucket of this sandy clay soil to my studio, processed it, and with the help of Philip, he helped me screen these on the wall. So this is like actual soil from up in the hill, the clay soil from it. And what you're looking at, the signs are still drying, so it's in the middle of the process. So one side, it's like the second coat was printed on, and it's beginning to dry, and then the second one is dried. And so I was thinking about like the commodification of land and how it's like segmented and sold, and what you could do with it. You could use the land to live off of it, or you could, like mine in it, you could sell the water in it, you could, so all these natural resources that I believe were like common to everybody now are like commodified and like separated, segmented into, to make money. This piece is titled "A Sign of Reclaiming Private Property." And so clay has different states of when you use it, and one of the states is when you recycle it or you want to reuse it. It's called reclaiming. So I was playing with the word reclaiming and thinking about this idea of like taking things back, these ideas back. This is the late Sharon Jones and the Dapkins. She has a song, well, she didn't create the song, but it's the song, This Land Is Your Land. She recorded it in 2005. And when I heard it, I thought it was really great. You know, she added a lot of extra lyrics. It sounded very different from the time that I heard it as a child. And so I thought it was really interesting, like the words that she started to add into it. And so here are the lyrics that I thought were interesting. And if you notice in the middle, she says that there was a sign, it said private property. On the back side, it said nothing, so it must be that that side was made for you and me. And I thought that was really interesting. That was the first time that I had heard that in this song of This Land Is Your Land. But I did some research and I actually found out that it was written by Guthrie, and he's an American folk singer, or was. And he wrote the song, and in the song, these were the lyrics that were in the song, and when we were taught as kids, they excluded these lyrics, you know, to make him a little bit more friendly, a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more like utopian, like kind of like we could all sing it. But in his version, he wrote, there was a big high wall that tried to stop me. The sign was painted, said private property. But on the backside, it didn't say nothing. This land was made for you and me. And so he was a socialist and also an anti-fascist. So you can see on his guitar, there's a sticker that says, "This machine kills fascists." And so I think in these ways of knowing also, like a lot of words get thrown around, they get kind of demonized or like negative connotations. And so he grew up in like the Depression time. And so there was a lot of him traveling and his poverty and how he viewed like land. And so again, this is the top of that piece, and if you would notice or take a look underneath it, this is what you would see underneath. So it's the opposite side of the sign. So on top, that's what we're seeing. It's like made for all of us, or that idea extended, and then on the bottom, it's it flipped upside down. This piece, for whomever owns the soil, no trespassing. I was thinking a lot still about this idea of land ownership, but also in this piece particularly, the no trespassing laws. And I was wondering where that came from, and to me it seems very harsh and very like a concrete idea of like, you know, I own this property, you can't be here, it's like my right to own these. So the idea of land ownership came from Europe, and via colonization it came to the US. So it derived from like farm owners having two plots of land that would meet up, and for example, one farmer would have cattle and the other farmer would have cabbage, and so like the cows would go and eat the cabbage, so they would delineate it with either a furrow or like a fence, and then eventually it became a law, and they created these like land laws. And so that was brought over to what is now the US, and that helped you know, dispossess the indigenous people of their lands via, they don't have these human rights. They also don't have any documentation of like owning these lands. They also don't have ideas of ownership to the land. They have a different relationship with it. So it was up for grabs, and you could just take as much as you want, push them out, displace them, including the Trail of Tears and things like that. This is a close-up of it. This is unfired clay. So I built the sculpture, and then I submerged it in water and let it dissolve. And so I was thinking, if these ideas are constructed, right? So all these ideas were constructed, politics are constructed, gender is constructed, all these different ideas, we could also like deconstruct them, or we could like unlearn, we could like move backwards and figure out like a better way of living with each other. So this is the process of it dissolving. This is another book that I got a chance to read. This is Mariana Mora. And in her book, she talks a lot about the Zapatistas in Chiapas. It was basically indigenous people from Chiapas, Mexico, and how they were able to, via a rebellion, take their land back. And they have these way of being autonomous from the Mexican government. So I took some ideas from that. These images The next iconography was Chainlink Fence. So I went around, well, this is images from my time here in San Diego. The first one obviously is like the border wall or fence, San Diego and Tijuana, and its negative connotations and its definite like delineation of not crossing over, even though this is called friendship. There's a friendship garden. They actually had, it was like open for people to meet on both sides of the border. The fence got bigger, it got thicker, and it got separated people even more. The middle image is at a golf course in Balboa Park. And so to me, this is another idea of like inclusion, exclusion of the like playing golf. You know, it's very much for a select few who have the luxury to go play it, and this fence is protecting the golf balls from coming out, but it's also a sign of like, this is where the golf course ends, and what's happening in the golf course and what's happening on the outside. And then the last image that I have is a baseball field, and to me, the idea of baseball is more about community and community building, and it has more players and there's more strategies. So to me, that's an idea that's a little bit more tied with inclusion and community building. So I built this piece titled Defining Boundaries. Roxana actually helped me make it. It took us a while to roll out all these little coils and like weave this chain link fence. So this is like before the installation, and this is after, the way it's displayed currently, submerged in 5 gallons of water. And so I was thinking, I read this other book by Bell Hooks. It's called Teaching Community, A Pedagogy of Hope. And in her book, she talks a lot about community. She wants the discourse to also talk about race, gender, class, and nationality. And she wants us to talk about it in community spaces. So in the golf courses, in the baseball fields, in all the other places that we gather in our homes included. And there's another series of Instagram posts. And so this account is called Saved by the Bell Hooks. And in this account, there's a lot of like quotes of bell hooks, and behind it is stills from the show Saved by the Bell. So I thought it was just like really, really interesting, you know, this idea of we're living through life, but then there's these really impactful like quotes that kind of go in line with our reality and like these new ways of growing. The last symbol or iconography that I was considering for this show is the cacti or the nopal. And the first image over here is actually at my sister's house. It's a really big cactus. When she moved there, we planted it, so it was like really little. The cactuses in the gallery are actually taken from this actual mother plant. The middle image is from Balboa Park, the same cactus garden. It has like some letters engraved in the cacti, even though you're not supposed to. And then the image, the last image is at Home Depot, and you could get like a cactus, a Christmas cactus, googly eyes, and a Santa hat. So I was thinking a lot about community, like reading Bell Hooks and her ideas about how to talk about community, how to build community. And so this piece, I titled it To Build Community. And it's inspired by like signs that are inside of people's homes. And it's a gesture of like inviting people in. So I wanted to kind of put the image of the cacti, because the cacti is very nourishing. It has water in it. You could eat it. It has these fruits, these tunas on the edge. You could also eat, but it also has thorns to protect itself. So to me, this idea of like mi casa es tu casa is inviting people in, but it's also letting them know that my house is your house, but that's it. My house is also your house. You know, so we should respect those spaces. This piece titled Lattice, I was thinking about community and about those dividing spaces and how we could merge those ideas, or how we could think about different ways of having different boundaries. So for example, this nopal that grows all over San Diego, it does become a little bit of a boundary, or like it stops people in the track, but nature could still go through it. It's still providing certain things. So I kind of wanted to blend these things together and see what would happen if, one dissolves the other or engulf the other. So not to get too dystopian, but we are in like a time of, extreme more regular wildfires, extreme drought, and like stronger like storms. And so the last point that I wanted to talk about was the usage of materials in my work, and why I use some of them are not fired. So traditionally in ceramics, pieces are fired in a kiln once or twice. In the show, there's actually only 2 pieces that are fired once. And so I've been considering a lot of the material that I use and having a better relationship with the land and where I gather these materials, but also of having a conversation in the present and not worrying about like if these pieces are gonna like outlive me or if they're gonna be displayed in certain places, but just trying to have a conversation with the now, because these things are happening now, whether it affects us directly in negative ways or we don't see them on our daily life, it still is present. And so for the last pieces, I have 2 more pieces in this artist talk. This one's called Another Sign, and it was inspired by like the no littering sign that you see all over highways, even though there's still like a lot of litter. And so it's like $1,000 fine if you litter it. So I wanted to take this idea of signage, but also sign as a metaphor, also nature are giving us signs, so signs of growth. In this cacti, I carved out these letters, and they callus over so they eventually heal, similar to like in Balboa Park. They eventually heal and it keeps on growing. I'm propagating them in water, so where the thorns usually are, roots would come out. Also where you cut it, like that's where roots also emerge. And this is the last piece in the gallery, and it's called Cactus People. And this one was inspired also by signage that we see in streets, but more about pedestrian crosswalks. And to me, this was this idea of caring for another person. So we know we have these rules where we're driving this big car that weighs a lot and it's possible a weapon, and we're driving it. And so if we're aware of other people, then we might protect them by not like hitting them. So to me, this idea, I was thinking, like, how do we know to do that, right? So we know that there's people there. We know that we shouldn't be reckless. And I was thinking, how can we extend that idea to others, not just like the people in our neighborhood or the children in that school, but like to all people. And even more importantly, how could we extend that idea to like the earth? So to me, this is like the cacti being part of like this conversation, having this signage on it, healing over, growing into like another plant. So this was the land acknowledgement that I read earlier, and I wanted to bring it back because in the beginning of this exhibition, I started thinking about some questions that I wanted to explore. So I was thinking about what is our relationship to the land, to place, to our neighbors? How did we learn to navigate these relationships? And what are the markers, the visual cues of these relationships? How do they change meaning over time? And so, fortunately, I did get some answers via like all this research I did but it also brought in a lot more questions. So, the question I was thinking is, what kind of future can we envision using what we know today? What we know of the past and what we can unlearn for the future generations. I think that we can begin by acknowledging and learning these histories of the land. So by learning what happened here, how we were able to settle here, how that has affected us via all these different privileges that we all have, how can that help us live in more reciprocity with like the earth and with each other. So thank you. I want to thank a special thank you to Luz Hernandez, my partner, and the rest of my incredibly supportive family. And also a couple of my friends who helped me install some of the work. So Michelle, Philip, Roxana, Amber, and Andy, thank you for your help in installing the work. Okay, and thank you so much. I appreciate your time. If you're wondering about some other information, and if you had some questions, I'd be able to answer them. If not, we could carry on with our night. Yeah.
Hello. I'm a little bit too close. I'm too close to the speaker. One more round of applause, please. Thank you so much, Luciano. Does anyone have any questions for Luciano? We have a question right here. You're the closest.
I'm curious, what clay did you use to do the cactus? Did you dig it out of the land?
So for the clay that I took from the land was only the one that has the for sale signs that was silkscreened. The rest of them are the rest of them are commercial clays. Yeah, they're terracotta. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm curious about your inspiration for this theme. Where did it come from?
So I've been, like I mentioned, I'm from Los Angeles. I've been living here in San Diego. I've been looking a lot about just what I thought a border town was, and when I came here, what I found to be San Diego. I also was thinking about like social media and about like how we gather information and how we are starting to become a society of believing all this information that we're seeing. So not that social media is inherently bad or inherently good, but it's how we're consuming the information, what we take from it, and how I believe that a lot of us, me included, don't necessarily like critically think about things. So I'm a very emotional person, so oftentimes when I see certain things, I react like in an emotional way. So I kind of was thinking, how can we look at just one subject, in this case land and land ownership, and how can we critically think about it? So not take it for granted, not like this belongs to here, like we're living in the present, but how can we think about the past, the present, but also like the future of it? So I think a lot of those things played into this exploration of land ownership.
Another question?
Okay.
Can you talk about the submersion of water in some of the pieces?
Yeah, so another material that I use is water. So I think water is very healing. We also live in an arid environment, so water is not necessarily pleasant here. We get it like but like it comes through pipes from like these big reservoirs. So for me, this idea of like healing, or water and gravity being part of like the nature of me collaborating. So I'm allowed to build something out of clay, and then I try to collaborate with nature via like water and gravity or other processes, and try to let go of things. I also have like I'm a little bit of a control freak. I love gardening and I love ceramics because of those reasons. You could control it and make it look the way that you want. But I'm also learning how to let go via what I'm learning in ceramics and what I'm learning in nature, of just like allowing it to happen. So meeting it halfway and then allowing it to do the rest. So in my way, by adding that water, like I go ahead and like let go of it and like let it create itself, or let it finish being created.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Luciano. I'm here behind you guys. I'm also listening and enjoying such a great talk. Thank you guys so much. Thank you everyone for showing. Thank you, Luciano.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the night. We're going to have some music. There's some drinks. Have a great time. Thank you.